Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Sonia, and in today's video I'm sharing with you 12 different Christmas cookies. This is a compilation of some of my favorite recipes that I have shared before on my channel. So I hope you enjoy it and happy baking. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today for 12 days of Christmas baking, I am making a cookie called Bayadera. It is something that I used to eat when I was little, and I still want to kind of keep up with that tradition. So for this cookie you will need 200 milliliters of water, 250 grams of margarine, 200 grams of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 400 grams of ground biscuit, 300 grams of walnuts, and then 100 grams of chocolate. And then you will also need for the glaze 150 grams of chocolate and 6 teaspoons of oil. So the first step is to melt your butter with water and vanilla, and I'm going to cut the butter into cubes just to make the process a little bit faster, and the butter is already at room temperature. Once it's all melted and just starting to boil, I'm going to add my cookie crumbs and my walnuts and stir everything together to combine. You can turn off your stove at this point. So once everything is nicely combined, I'm going to melt the first part of the chocolate. And then I'm going to, once the chocolate is melted, which doesn't take very long at all, I'm going to add half the batter into this melted chocolate and leave the other half set aside. Once it's well combined, I'm going to move over to my pan. I'm adding a parchment paper to the bottom of it. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I like to just pop it out and cut it on a cutting board so that way I'm not cutting it on the pan. And I'm going to add my chocolate mixture first. I did switch over to my spreader, cake spreader. It worked a lot easier than the wooden spoon to spread the batter around. And once it was even and nicely smoothed out, I'm going to be adding my light colored batter, the one without the chocolate, and do the same thing. Spread it and make it as even as possible. Now it's time to melt the other part of the chocolate that was mixed with oil, and this is for the glaze. This is going to make nice shiny chocolate glaze on top of the squares. Once it was melted, I just poured it over top of the cookies, the squares, and then I'm going to just move the pan around so it goes everywhere, and I'm just going to push it gently into little corners just so that way the whole thing is covered. Now after that, it's going to go into the fridge for a couple of hours. Well, first you want to make sure that it's completely cooled down on the countertop before you put it into the fridge, but then I put mine in for 24 hours, and then I cut them out into squares, and these taste so good. I absolutely love them. Well, I hope you had enjoyed these 12 days of Christmas baking, because this was the last one, number 12. Let me know down in the comments if you've seen them all, and I will see you for my next video, which will be festive appetizers. So make sure that notification bell is on and that you are subscribed so you don't miss out these videos. I have 2 more coming for this year, so stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. Bye. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today for 12 days of Christmas baking, we are making chocolate baskets. And to mold the baskets, I'm actually going to concentrate on molding them here. But if I run out of space, I have actual baskets like these that I will be using. I will spray this with a non-stick cooking spray. It says you don't have to, but I will just in case, because I don't trust that it's not gonna stick. So for the dough, you will need 500 grams of flour, 150 grams of sugar, 2 eggs, 200 grams of butter. Then you will also need some baking powder, about a teaspoon. And then for the filling, you will need the other 200 grams of butter. You will need 200 grams of powdered sugar, 150 milliliters of milk, 150 grams of ground up walnuts, 150 grams of ground biscuit, and then 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder and 1 teaspoon of rum. And then for the glaze on top, you will need 200 grams of chocolate. I'm using chocolate chips, and 6 teaspoons of oil, and I am using canola. So we're gonna get started on making our dough. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, in my stand mixer, I am going to cut up butter and add it to it, and then I'm going to beat it until it's nice and fluffy. And once it's nice and fluffy, I will be adding my sugar and the eggs. So I mix flour and baking powder together with a fork before I added it to the whipped butter. I'm going to combine all the ingredients until it's smooth. So I went ahead and sprayed a non-stick spray into my little mini muffin pan, and now I'm going to take my dough and start adding it to the muffin pan. The balls should be approximately teaspoon size big, and then I'm going to use my little wooden spoon to press it down. ready, I put them in a preheated oven at 350 for 15 minutes. And I repeated this process twice. And once they are done baking, you want to take them out immediately out of the oven and let them cool for maybe a minute, and then take them out immediately out of the baking pan onto the cooling rack. Just be very careful not to break, because if they're fairly thin, they might break on you a little bit. And you want them to be thin so that way you can put enough amount of filling in it. Now, speaking of the filling, I had mixed up my walnuts, ground cookies, and cocoa together. And then in my stand mixer, I'm going to whisk the butter and powdered sugar. And then I'm going to combine with the walnuts and the cookie mixture. Now it's time to assemble them, and I'm going to add about a teaspoon of filling into each cup, and I just want to make sure that the top is smoothed out. Once they were all filled, I started on my chocolate glaze. You can use a double broiler to melt your chocolate. I'm just melting it in my pot, but I want to make sure the heat is about medium-low and mixing it continuously so the chocolate doesn't burn. Once it's melted, you want to drizzle it over top of the little cups. Now, I don't like too much chocolate on mine, but you can cover the whole thing if you'd like. That's totally up to you. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. These taste so delicious and are worth a try. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Today, for my 12 days of Christmas baking, I am making Christmas crack. And I am going to make one with walnuts and one with crushed candy cane. So because I'm doing a double batch, I need 2 cups of butter, 2 cups of brown sugar packed, about 80 of these crackers. These are soda crackers. And then I will need 4 cups of chocolate chips, and then half a teaspoon of coarse salt if I want to add it with walnuts, but I'm not sure that I will do, so I will just do walnuts on one and candy cane on the other one. Probably won't use all of it, but I just filled up the little bowls. So I'm going to start assembling it. So just before I started assembling, I preheated my oven to 350. And then I sprayed my nonstick pan with some non-stick spray and added a parchment paper to it, and then I put about 40 crackers down. Probably could have fit a little bit more, but the recipe called for 40, so I kind of wanted to stick to that. And I did this to 2 pans because I'm going to be doing 2 different toppings. So I wanted to have 2 different pans. And once this is assembled, I'm going to move over to my stove and I'm going to start cooking the little, well, melting butter with sugar. And this will be your sticking in your crunchy part of the Christmas crack, like your almost like your toffee part of the Christmas crack. So I just added the whole butter, you can cut it up too, and sugar, and I'm going to melt it together, stirring frequently. And because my butter was at room temperature, it was easy to break it down with the spoon. So once that was all melted down, I poured half of it on each, and then I used my wooden spoon to spread it out around. It would probably work better if the pan was it didn't have that much room, or if I added more crackers, then the crackers wouldn't move so much, but it wasn't a big deal. So once I had this all spread out, I put it in the oven for, I would say it took about 8 minutes, or depending on your oven, you want to keep it in there until it's bubbling. And once it's bubbling, you want to take it out. So at this point, when it's done nice and bubbly, you turn the oven off. And this is an important step. And then you add, I was adding all of my chocolate chips. I just split the amount into two pans, trying to cover as much as I can. But don't worry if you don't cover some parts, it will be easily spreadable once it's melted. And then I put it back into the turned off oven for about 4 minutes, took it out. This was enough time just to help the chocolate melt even more, and then I just used my little spreader, and without pressing at all, I just spread the chocolate around. And then immediately after, I added my toppings, and like I said, I was using chopped walnuts as well as crushed candy cane. And then I let this cool on the counter, and then I put it in the fridge before breaking it up. These are so easy to make and taste absolutely delicious, and I love putting them in the little bags with nice little ribbon and giving them away, or using them as basket fillers for my DIY Christmas gifts. Well, I hope you had enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm excited to share a good old gingerbread cookie recipe. So let's get started. So for the gingerbread cookie recipe, this makes 24, but depending on your cookie cutters and all that stuff, you kind of have to keep that in mind. You might have more or less. So, but you will need 2/3 of a cup of canola oil. You can use, I don't recommend using olive oil, but you could use vegetable oil. Coconut oil will give it a little bit of a different taste as well. But so I usually just typically stick to canola oil. Then you need some blackstrap molasses. I have a 1/4 of a cup. Then a cup of dark brown sugar, 2 eggs, 3 cups of flour, and then in here I have 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves, and then I have a teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And the first thing that we're going to do is whisk our flour with baking soda, spices, as well as salt, and I'm just going to use a fork to mix it all together. So first thing you're going to mix up is your dry ingredients together. That's your flour, your seasonings, and your spices. And then in a stand mixer, you're going to mix all your wet ingredients. And then once that's mixed up, slowly and carefully you're going to add your flour to it. But you want to go very slow because as you know, using a stand mixer and adding flour, it will go all over the place.
Oh, oh, la, da, 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 oh, oh, la, da, 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 making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over.
Once you have a consistency of a dough, you want to stop and take it out. The dough will be very sticky, so when you roll it out on your rolling board, you want to add some flour, and then you want to form it into a solid ball, and then take that ball and wrap it with saran wrap and put it in a fridge for a couple hours or overnight. I did mine in a Ziploc bag because I did not realize I didn't have saran wrap, and I also left mine for overnight.
Cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you. Baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and
So once the dough was taken out of the fridge, I ended up rolling it out and using some of these cookie cutters to just cut out different shapes. You want to roll it out on a very lightly floured surface, and also flouring your rolling pin a little bit because it will be a little sticky.
I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed?
Also would like to mention that today's video is part of a collaboration hosted by Tiffany from Small Town 6. So make sure you check out Tiffany's channel as well as the playlist that will be linked down below.
To be making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh, la, da, 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 oh, oh, la, da, 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 oh, oh, la, da, 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 making our Christmas memories. I've been wrapping presents for you.
Once I had all the shapes cut out, I baked them for about 8 minutes at 375 preheated oven.
I've been hanging marbles in the tree, and I've lit my house with Christmas.
I hope you had enjoyed this video, and if you're stopping by for the very first time, and if you're stopping by from the playlist, welcome. I hope you decide to press that subscribe button and a notification bell, and don't forget to check out the other cookie videos that I've been posting, and many more to come as part of my 12 days of Christmas baking series that are happening on this channel. So until next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another 12 days of Christmas baking. Today we are making authentic Italian butter cookies. At least that's what the recipe says. I don't think I've ever had them in Italy, but I take it they know what they're talking about. So let's get baking. For this recipe, you will need 230 grams of butter at room temperature, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, 320 grams of flour, 1 tablespoon of fine salt, 100 grams of granulated sugar, and some powdered sugar for decorating. So I am going to place the butter in a mixer with some salt, granulated sugar, and vanilla extract. And I'm going to mix it until they blend and form a cream type of texture.
And while that is mixing, I am just going to sift my flour, and I'm just using a fork to mix the flour up. This gives it that same kind of sifting consistency. And then I'm going to add the flour into the mixture and mix it until it has a crumbly texture. So now I'm going to place the dough in a lightly floured surface. It's my pastry board, and the dough is at this point very soft and very easily workable. I'm going to make a bit of a disc and smooth it out, and then you should wrap it with a cellophane wrap. I'm all out, so I'm just adding it to the Ziploc bag and making sure all the air is out. I'm going to place it into a fridge for about half an hour, and then I'm going to take it out and again put it in on a lightly floured surface, and I'm going to cut it into 3 sections, and I'm going to roll those sections to form a cylinder, and then I'm going to wrap all that back up. It says it in plastic wrap, but I didn't have it, so I am using parchment paper, wrapping it up and placing it back into that Ziploc bag, and this will go back into the fridge for 3 hours. I did leave mine for 24 hours. And now the next day I added some granulated sugar to my board, took out my little cylinders and rolled them into that granulated sugar, and then I sliced them to about 2 centimeter thickness. Then I was placing those on top of a parchment paper that was on top of a baking sheet, and I'm going to bake it at about 400 Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes or until they get a light browned on top. Once they are finished, you want to remove them from the oven, immediately place them on a rack so that they keep their sandy texture. Now, I did follow this recipe to a T, and like I mentioned, I never had these before. I did find them a touch salty. They had a great flavor. They were just a little bit too salty. Now, I think if you put Nutella on them and maybe even stuck them together, or even, I did not sprinkle mine with powdered sugar, but if you did that, that saltiness might go away. Well, I hope you had enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks for watching. To my channel today for 12 days of Christmas baking, I am making Kinder Bueno wafers, and for this you will need 200 grams of white chocolate, 200 grams of dark chocolate or milk chocolate. If you don't have dark chocolate, then you will need about 150 milliliters of water and 200 grams of sugar and 250 grams of butter and 600 grams of milk powder. I'm using skim milk, so I'm going to use the whole bag, and then I have 100 grams here. So we're going to start with melting these 3 ingredients together. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to melt butter with some water and sugar. And you want to melt this until it becomes somewhat bubbly, just like a gentle roll. And once you get it into gentle roll, you're going to add the powdered milk. And once you add the powdered milk, you want to use your hand mixer to mix it all in. Once it's all mixed in, you're going to take it and split it into two, the batter into two, and in one you'll put the white chocolate chips, and into the other you're going to put the milk chocolate chips or dark chocolate chips depending on what you have, and then you're going to use your hand mixer again to mix it all in. The chocolate will melt since the batter is hot, so you want to do this immediately, right after you take it off the stove. Now it's time to assemble it. The wafers, I'm using store-bought wafers, and you're going to need 3 of them. I am using the open squares up, and you're going to spread all of the white batter as evenly as possible, and then you're going to cover it up with a flat surface to the bottom, and then so you have the open squares up again. And then you're going to spread the chocolate batter, the brown chocolate, the milk chocolate batter on top again, trying to get it as even as possible. And now your top wafer will go with the open squares down, so you have the flat on top. And now it's time to add something heavy and put it in a fridge to cool and set. So I'm just putting a piece of parchment paper on top of it, and I'm going to put my heavy bar stone on top of it and put it in a fridge. And then the next day I cut them up into long rectangles, and these tasted absolutely delicious. Well, I hope you had enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Recipe will be linked down below, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Cookies that I picked out are no bake, and they're very simple to make. There's very few ingredients, so I'm going to get started and show you what you need and how you make it. I'm making a double batch, so you will need some walnuts. You will need about 150 grams of walnuts. You will need 200 grams of cookie graham crackers. These are the ones I use because I love them, and for me they taste the best, but any will do. And then Nutella. So you need about 500 grams of Nutella. So there's about 1 kilogram in here. So I will be using the whole thing because I'm doing a double batch, but if you're doing a single batch, you only need half. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grind up my walnuts. I don't do quite well with walnuts. I was hoping to find hazelnuts because walnuts make my mouth itch a little bit, but I couldn't. The store that I went to didn't have hazelnuts, so I'll just do walnuts.
Okay, our report's all squared away. Thanks so much for your understanding. We really appreciate it.
So I like using the manual one because it gets them ground up really fine. Then I'm going to measure out 400 grams of the graham crackers crumbs.
But somehow felt I wanna have someone to hold, walking through the falling snow. I've been trying to tell you in every way, but now I'll get it done. I'm not going away and right around the mistletoe.
Now I'm going to add the whole thing of Nutella.
wanna go lick my fingers. Now I'm going to mix this up.
I'm gonna let it show. I'm gonna let it. I'm gonna let it show. I'm gonna let it show.
I'm going to use my hands. Now I'm going to form them into balls. So I'm adding more crumbs over here so I can roll these into a ball, and then I'm going to roll them here, and I'm going to put them over here, and then they're gonna go in a freezer to freeze a little bit, and then I'm going to be storing them in this container that I picked up at the dollar store. It's a food safe container, comes with the lid, and I will be separating the layers with parchment paper. For the balls, forming of the balls, I'm just using a small scoop from Pampered Chef. And that gives me a perfect size. Give it a little roll. And roll them in. Here they are, all done. I got 91 truffles. So I'm going to put them in a freezer for about 2 hours, and then I'm going to transfer them into the container and into the freezer. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give me a thumbs up. And if you are brand new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe, stick around, and until next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day. For peanut butter squares, which I have a recipe over on my blog, I am making double recipe. So for double recipe, you need 1 cup of butter, half a cup of peanut butter, 3 cups of icing sugar, 2 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and 4 cups of ground up either arrowroot cookies, graham crackers, or any other ground up cookie type of thing that you have. So I'm going to start with creaming my butter first, and the peanut butter and sugar all together. And then once you are done, for the topping, you will need 1 cup of chocolate chips and 1 cup of 2 cups of chocolate chips and 1 cup of peanut butter, but we'll get to that in a minute. So first I'm going to cream the first amount of peanut butter and sugar with some butter. You want a butter to be somewhat of a room temperature. And then after that has creamed together, I will be mixing in the egg and vanilla, followed by the crumbs, cookie crumbs. Once that is finished, I'm just going to scrape all the batter off the little paddle, and then I'm going to prep my baking sheets. I'm actually using the taller one. They're more like lasagna pans, just because I want a little bit of thickness in the bars. And I'm going to press them into this. Now this is a little bit tricky. You can really roll it out. You can really press it out. You just kind of have to work with it. I tried rolling it out, which didn't work. Then I used extra parchment paper on top just to push it into the corners, and that worked somewhat. What I should have done is use my rolling pin over top of the parchment paper. I think that probably would have worked the best. Then I'm going to bake it at 350 Fahrenheit, a preheated oven, for 15 to 20 minutes until an inserted wooden toothpick comes out clean. And while that is baking, I am going to melt my chocolate chips and second amount of peanut butter in a small saucepan. And then once that is all melted and combined, I will be spread it over top of the baked squares, and then I'm going to cool the whole thing in a fridge. Here they are all finished. They are so delicious and a huge hit with my family. They have a bit of a chewy consistency, which we like. They do get softer in over time, so when they first come out, they're a little bit more harder, but then they get softer in the fridge. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
For today's video, we are making Raffaello balls. This is one of my childhood favorites and I thought it would be perfect to start with it. So let's get started.
For Raffaello balls, you will need some hazelnuts, precisely 200 grams, which is what I'm going to start with first. I'm going to roast mine. Then you need 200 grams of coconut, unsweetened, and then plus 100 more for rolling the balls in. And then, so the 100 grams of coconut and the hazelnut you will need at the end. But to make the little dough, you will need some powdered milk, about 400 grams. Then you'll need the 200 grams of coconut. Then you'll need 400 grams of butter, and then, of sugar, 400 grams of sugar, and then you'll need 250 grams of butter. And you're gonna need about 2/3 of a cup of water. So I'm gonna get started with adding my hazelnuts into my cast iron. I'm gonna put it in the oven to roast up. And then you want to peel all the skin off. So for the dough, I'm going to bring water and sugar into a gentle boil. So we have reached the gentle boil. I'm going to add my butter. So once the butter has melted completely, I'm going to add my coconut, followed by the powdered milk. And now it needs to completely cool down. And it's supposed to be a very thick consistency when it's cooled off. It took about 2 hours in the snow outside the pot for it to become solid and cooled off. And once it was that consistency, I brought it in and started making the balls. I am using a small scoop from Pampered Chef, and simply because I want them to be all the same size. You could also just eyeball it with your hand or use a spoon to scrape it up. It really doesn't matter. You can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. Then I flatten it and I add my baked hazelnuts that I had baked and peeled, and then roll it in a ball, and then roll that ball in the coconut. This would be the hardest part of this recipe, but it's so well worth it in my opinion because they taste absolutely delicious. And this recipe made about 40 balls this size, give or take. I might have sampled a few of them. before I put them in the box. Well, I hope you had enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye! For today's shortbread cookies, you will need just a few simple ingredients. It is 1 cup of softened butter, half a cup of confectionery sugar, 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch, and 1.5 cups of flour. So I'm going to start with preheating the oven at 375, and then I'm going to whip butter with my mixer until it's fluffy. Now I'm going to beat it on low for 1 minute. And then after that on high for 3 to 4 minutes. Now that the dough is done, it is time to make the cookies. So I lined my baking sheet with parchment paper, and I'm using a teaspoon to shape my size of the cookie, and then I'm going to use the fork to press the cookie down. So now they're going to go into the oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. So these are done. I'm going to let them sit for a little bit before I transfer them onto my wire rack right over there. Well, I hope you had enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. The recipe is linked down below. Make sure you're subscribed and your notification bell is on, because there's a lot more coming and you don't want to miss out.
Hi guys, and welcome to 12 Days of Christmas Baking, and today we are making snickerdoodles. This is something that we had tried for the very first time at a Disney Very Merry Christmas party several years ago, and I've been making them since then. So let's get baking.
Here are the ingredients that you will need for today's snickerdoodle cookies. You will need 3/4 of a cup of unsalted butter, softened. Mine needs a little bit more softening. Then you will need 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 large egg, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. This is what I used, and then baking soda and salt. You will need a teaspoon of vanilla extract and 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and then I will show you what you will need for coating. So before you get started on making the dough, you want to preheat your oven to 350 Fahrenheit. So first we are going to cream our butter and sugar together. And I'm doing it between 2 and 4 speed. I'm going to slow it down and add my egg and vanilla, and I'm going to mix it until smooth. You want to go in and just scrape the sides if need be. And now I'm going to add my baking soda, cream of tartar, and salt. Now slowly I'm going to add my flour. So I think I have a consistency of the dough that I'm looking for. Just going to mix it into a bowl. Now I'm going to mix a quarter of a cup of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I've lined my baking sheet. I'm using my stone with parchment paper, and now I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons and roll. I'm actually going to measure it. I think this will be a good measure. I'm actually thinking that these might be a little too big. I'm going to do 3 like that, and then I'm gonna do the rest of them a little bit smaller. So now it's ready to go into the oven for 10 to 13 minutes. I'm going to start checking at about 10 minutes just to make sure that I don't overcook them. And I got 29 cookies here. So the cookies are done. I'm just letting them rest for about a minute or so on the cooking sheet. They're soft. And then I'm going to transfer them onto my wire rack to cool completely before I store them away.
These turned out so delicious, and let's just say I'm going to have to make a second batch because they are all gone. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss out any of the more cookie recipes that are coming your way.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Sonia, and we are making a video which is part of the series 12 Days of Christmas Baking. And today I am making wafers. They are a combination of chocolate and cookie wafers. So let's get started.
For the wafers, you will need 300 milliliters of milk, 300 grams of sugar, 250 grams of butter. Then you will need 300 grams of cookie crumbs. This could be graham cracker, could be any cookie crumbs that you use for baking. And then you will need 300 grams of walnuts, 100 grams of chocolate. This is, I think mine is semi-sweet. And then you will need a tablespoon of vanilla sugar. So I'm going to get started. So the first thing that we are doing is melting sugar inside the milk. So I'm going to add some milk, and then I'm going to be adding sugar to it and stirring constantly under, I did about a medium heat. I melted the sugar until it was completely melted and it came to a soft boil. So now we are ready to add the other ingredients. So I'm adding butter, and I'm going to let this butter completely melt. And once that's all melted up, I will be adding some of my cookie crumbs as well as walnuts and mixing that in between each other until it's well combined. So as you can see, I'm mixing the cookies first, and then I'm going to add the walnuts, which I had grounded up already. And then once that's done, you can turn off the heat. I will be melting the chocolate now in a smaller saucepan, but you want this saucepan to be big enough to accommodate about half the batter. That's how I did it, instead of dirtying up another pan or a dish. So I'm going to melt my chocolate, and you want to do this on a low to medium heat and stirring constantly so the chocolate doesn't burn to the bottom. This took under a minute to melt. And once it was melted, I turned the heat off and I added half of that batter into here. So you'll have a chocolate, one with the chocolate, half of the chocolate and half without. To the half without, I am adding the vanilla extract, and I'm mixing it until it's well combined. Now the fun part starts, assembling the wafers. I had picked these up at a European store. You can usually find them in any Eastern European store. I am using the ones that have the holier side up, so that way I'm pushing the chocolate batter in to the little holes and spreading it out evenly. Then I'm putting the flat side on top, so that way I have the open side up again. And now I'm going to add the one with the vanilla extract on and doing the same thing and repeating this one more time. So 1 row of chocolate and 1 row of vanilla.
You and me deck the halls, making everything look just like it should at Yuletide. The parcels are all under the tree, right where they should be. Soon everything is Christmas-fied. Disney bona fide. And so are all of you. Does this come true? These few days go by so fast. I wish I could somehow make them last. Put it in a bottle, stick a label on, saying do not open till summer comes. Right now, let's savor this, and underneath the mistletoe, get a kiss. The rest of the year may be hard to come by.
Now when you get to the end, you will put the whole side down, so that way you have the flat side up. And you press it, try to press it evenly. And then I'm going to put my heavy stone bar pan on top of this. I'm just putting paper towel first, and I'm going to place this in a fridge for 24 hours. So after the 24 hours was done, I took it out and I cut it into rectangles.
So right now I'm gonna give it a try. And so are all of you. Does this come true?
This is another childhood recipe that I love and my family loves, and I hope that you will too. I hope you guys enjoy this collection of recipes, and let me know if you're going to be trying any. Until next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.